What's up, everybody? Welcome into episode number 43 of For the Love of the Game. I'm your host, Mark Belville, along with my co-host here, Steve Lewis, as always, for another episode. Steve, how you doing today, brother?
Besides it being really cold outside, Mark, not too bad.
It is freezing, dude. It was actually flurrying, snowing a little bit on the way over here, which I don't like that because now I got to drive home in the snow at midnight.
Well, I have to work out in the elements, so I was clearly aware that, not only was it snowing, but there was snowing on the way home too. So, yeah, not so great. Wish it was warmer.
Mhm.
But with the cold weather, at least we get basketball back, college basketball back. So, I think
That's the best part about the winter is basketball season.
and also playoff football.
Yes, playoff football, which we're going to get into a little bit of that today. But before we do, we are presented by um, the Unwrapped Sports Network. We're presented by Wired by Sports as well. Go check out everything at wiredbysports.com and unwrappedsports.com as well. Couple of housekeeping things. We got to get to our sponsors. We got RX Hemp over at rxhemp.com. Go check them out for all your CBD, all natural pain treatment creams. They got a heated therapy and a cool therapy cream. That stuff works great. All your aches and pains, just rub that on there. And use code RXHemp-USN and save 10% on your whole order at checkout. And then also, we're going to get into some sports betting a little bit later. But to do all of that, use mybookie.ag. They got a great website, sleek design on there, and they have all your latest. Why are you smiling like that?
I'm trying to.
No, I like it. I like it. No, keep it going. I like it. Just keep it. Do it again. There we go. Yeah, all your sports betting needs over at mybookie.ag. They got all the latest lines, player props, everything you need on there. Come bet, try to win some money with us, and use code USN100 over there, and they will match your first deposit 100%. So you put in $100, you get $100. It's simple and easy. So go try to win over at mybookie.ag. So today's show, we are going to get into the playoff games in the NFL. It is wild card weekend. We made it to the playoffs. We're going to go over some surprise storylines in the NBA. And then we're going to talk a little bit of sports betting, some trends that we've been seeing, and some things that might help you guys out over at MyBookie or whatever sports, gambling site that you use. But to get started, Stevie, we're going to talk about wild card weekend. And I just got to say, I'm excited. Playoff football's here. How about you?
I'm excited for the schedule, Mark. I mean, we're talking about instead of 4 games, we get 6 games this week. And I just love the way that they set up the time schedule 1, 4, and 8 each day, Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Wildcard weekend usually always has some real fireworks, probably the most eventful round of the entire playoffs, in my opinion, just because, while it looks like it's a little top heavy this year, there's definitely some spots where there's some underdog teams that maybe possibly pull up an upset here early in the playoff season.
Chase Young? Think the Washington Redskins got a shot?
Well, I thought about it, and then I remembered that my guy is back in the playoffs again. Now, he might not be on my side, but he'll always be in my heart.
He'll always be your guy.
He'll always be in my heart. And that guy gets a chance this week.
I just can think of "You'll Be in My Heart."
It's something.
That's all I can think of. Like, it's going on your head right now.
Told me that I didn't get to enjoy the playoffs this year, and then I remembered that I will always enjoy the playoffs because he will always be in the playoffs.
As long as
where he is.
As long as Tommy's in the playoffs. All right, man. We're gonna go over game by game. We got the first game on Saturday at 1:05 p.m. We have Colts versus Bills. I'm just going to throw out the betting line just for you gamblers out there. We got the Bills as a 6.5-point favorite at home, and there will be some sort of fans in attendance, Steve.
No, I know that.
Who do you like in that game?
I like Buffalo. Buffalo, it would be sad if Buffalo flunked here early in the playoffs. Would I be shocked? No. But they've been the hottest team, arguably, in the NFL over the last 7-8 weeks. They've played great competition. Their offense is firing on all cylinders right now. I think adding Stephon Diggs was actually a bigger acquisition than I actually gave it credit for.
That might have been the biggest move of the offseason last year.
You know what it was? It was the idea that you had this diva wide receiver coming over to Buffalo. Like a cold, uninhabited area. Well, in my head, that's how I see it. Like Stephon Diggs deserves to be like in Los Angeles or somewhere at one point where he or
Miami. Oh yeah, South Beach.
Exactly. And for him to be able to thrive in Buffalo was stunning to me. Now we obviously knew that Josh Allen had some chops. I mean, not the smartest bulb I think I remember the play in the wild card weekend last year at Houston, Buffalo was up 19-0, choked that game away, and I have this image in my head of when Josh Allen was running up the sidelines and tried to lateral the ball and almost threw the game away right in that moment there. And I said, this guy's never going to win a playoff game. He's never going to win a playoff game. And now this year, I'm way the back end. And like you said, I had it from both angles. Like, imagine going to Buffalo to play a football game and there's no juice in the stadium. I think that would be more of an asset for Buffalo than any environment at all.
Oh, yeah.
But then you also say to yourself, Bills Mafia, that's a great fan base right there. Tables, they love going through them.
Oh, yeah.
To not be able to allow them to even have a chance to be able to walk in that stadium and give some noise to a team that really deserves it. They played, 13-3 this year?
13-3.
I think that it was important for them to be able to enjoy it. It's kind of like Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't get to enjoy it, but Buffalo should get to enjoy it. As far as
Cleveland's had some fans there, but I think we talked about this before. It's like in a season that's full of COVID, you have two teams like Cleveland and Buffalo who have two of the most diehard fan bases in the NFL, and they haven't been fully able to enjoy it. Like, just imagine the full dog pound at a Cleveland Browns game or the full Bills Mafia, that stadium packed, sold out, especially going into the playoffs.
Well, I literally laughed so hard I spilled the coffee I wasn't drinking when I saw all the people show up to meet the Buffalo Bills after they beat Denver, just because they won the AFC East. Now, as a Patriots fan, I clearly understand that, like, that's huge torment to a team that would never even touch the division until Tom Brady had to leave it. So I understood it from their perspective of how much they loved it, but at the same time, I was like, imagine if this team makes it to the Super Bowl.
They're going to lose it.
Just throw a parade right there.
Burn the city down.
And as far as the game goes, I do think Indianapolis presents some issues to Buffalo that they've struggled with all year, and that had to do with their run defense. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor has been absolutely tremendous, but as why I want to give Jonathan Taylor props, Indianapolis has hosted one of the best offensive lines in the league, and I think that's another reason why Philip Rivers has been able to be somewhat better this year than he was last year. It's just because he's got a little time. And obviously, Mark, if you have a great run game, it takes a lot of pressure off you as a quarterback anyway. So I do think Indianapolis has a chance to win this game if Buffalo chokes. But at the same time, Buffalo is like, we just watched them play a Miami team that was fighting to get in the playoffs, and they basically played 70% of the snaps. And they dominate them in all three phases of the game. They dominated on defense, they dominated them on offense, and they dominated them on special teams.
Yep.
And the one thing I know about football is if you want to win in all three key areas of the game, and nobody's doing it better than the Buffalo Bills right now.
No, I completely agree, and I'm on the Bills as well this week, and for a lot of the same reasons. I do think they're playing the best recently in the last few weeks, better than any team in the NFL currently. And like you said, they played this past week 70% of the game. They didn't have they had a lot of their offensive guys. Some of their defensive guys didn't play, but they were playing against the Miami Dolphins team who needed to win to make the playoffs, and that was a good Miami Dolphins defense, a very good defense, and they put up 50 plus. They put up a 50 burger on them, and so I just think it's going to be tough to stop that offense right now. Josh Allen's playing at an MVP level this year. A lot of people didn't want to give him props, and rightfully so. He's kind of been lackluster, but he's definitely turned it around this year. We know that from watching Colts games this year, they give up a ton of points. They've been in a lot of shootouts this year, a lot of high-scoring games. Buffalo's going to put up points. It's going to come down to, can Buffalo stop that run game? Jonathan Taylor has been absolutely unbelievable. Shout out my fantasy team for making it far because of him. And it's for that offensive line. And when you have a great offensive line, it helps when you got an old quarterback like Philip Rivers, who's not as mobile. He gets protected. The play action, that help opens up stuff downfield for T.Y. Hilton and other guys, Michael Pittman Jr. So they're going to control that. It's going to be one at the line of scrimmage, I think. And if Buffalo loses this game, it's going to be because they flop again. It's not going to be because Indy comes out and steals it from them. It's going to be because Buffalo just blows it again and has one of those same blunders that they had last year in the playoffs.
I completely agree. This is Buffalo's game to lose. I think we lose sight about the acquisition of Cole Beasley, how big he's been in the slot, and how a great slot receiver really makes a quarterback's job a lot easier. Buffalo hosts three guys that can run the ball now, and like I said, their defense is good enough.
Yeah,
good enough for a team that has a really, really good offense to go along to boot. So yeah, if gun to my head, I'm taking Buffalo under a touchdown this week. I think that's a steal. I think you're going to watch that line go back and forth. I think it's going 6.5. It went up to 7 early on in the week. Could go back to 6.5. If you see it at 7, get the hook. But I also will say though, it's always important to have football numbers in play. So if it's at 6.5 and you can buy it down to 6, I'd buy it down to 6 too, just
Oh, yeah.
to be able to get that whole number. So
Yep.
that's kind of how I feel about it. Yep. So I think we're both on the same boat.
Both on the same page. I do like Buffalo in this game as well, and betting with the spread too. So I completely agree with that. Second game we have coming on this Saturday at 4:40 p.m. We have I was almost at St. Louis. We got the Los Angeles Rams against the Seattle Seahawks. NFC West matchup. Seattle's a 4-point favorite in this game. I'll start with this game, guys. I like Seattle in this game. I like it to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. I think it's going to be low scoring, just like their last few matchups have been. That's usually how it is when these teams see each other. They know each other very, very well, obviously being from the same division. Not sure how well Jared Goff is going to play. He didn't play last week, so I don't think he's going to be 100% healthy. He does have that thumb injury, I believe it is. And it just comes down for me is you have Russell Wilson on the other end. You know, when it comes down to in a close game, I want the quarterback that I think is going to make the right play in clutch situations. And to me, that's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue there. I mean, the first thing that I thought of when I actually saw that game, it wasn't even to pick the game. It was to go look at the total.
Yeah.
The total was 43, and I said to myself, there's no way that you can't not take the under in this game. You have two divisional rivals that are now playing each other for the third time this year, two teams that know each other very, very well. And anytime I know in history that when a division team plays another team 3 different times, like it's a slobber knocker of a game.
Oh, yeah.
And
very sloppy.
And the way that you just said it was trending with the Rams. Like you got Goff, who I expect to play.
I think he'll play too.
I think Goff will battle through it. Obviously, it looked like Cooper Kupp is going to be in practice tomorrow, so he cleared protocol, so he'll be back. The big thing is for them is Cam Akers going to be healthy? When Cam Akers was at the end of the year, he was starting to see workload carries 20 to 5. That's a lot of touches for a rookie, and it was almost like McVay had paved that game plan all year. And I think we see it with a lot of good teams now too. They want their workhorse young running backs to be the catalyst that gets them through anything and everything. So
Yeah.
I do think if Cam Akers is able to perform, it gives the Rams a better chance. To me, 4.5 is actually kind of high. I kind of like that inside of a field goal.
Yeah.
If it was me, I would take the points with the Rams, but I still believe that Seattle's probably going to come out on top. The only disadvantage that they don't have going for them right now is the fact that they don't have any home field advantage, really. They might be playing in Seattle, but the 12th man is
not there. It's not like what it's been in the past for them.
And honestly, that line for Seattle has been susceptible. So I think that guys like Aaron Donald are going to be able to give Russell Wilson some fits. And like we said, when you play him enough, you know how to contain Russell Wilson.
Yep.
So I don't think Seattle wanted to see the Rams in this matchup. The only thing that they have going for them is they got a banged-up Rams team. I would wonder what they're going to do with Ramsey. Are they going to really let him take DK Metcalf one-on-one and kind of let that matchup happen? Because honestly, while I believe Jalen Ramsey is a top-tier quarterback or whatever he's doing, I do believe that DK Metcalf is one of those physical specimens that can get right back to him in a heartbeat. So if you take that and you say to yourself, that could maybe be a wash one side or the other side, I don't really think there's an advantage there for St. Louis that makes me feel like their offense is going to be able to put up enough points to be able to contend with Seattle. So I would say it's a close game. If I'm going to bet it, I would definitely take the points. But I think my bet's mainly going to be on the under this week, Mark.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about it last night too about that under. That's definitely the play of the game if you guys are looking to bet on it. And I think Tyler Lockett has a big game in this one. You know, I think he's going to need to, but I don't think the Rams have the speed on the outside to keep up with Tyler Lockett. And even if Ramsey can somewhat contain Metcalf a little bit, I think that opens up things for Lockett as well. So, and then plus like Goff, like you don't know what Jared Goff you're going to get. I mean, are we going to get the Jared Goff from the New York Jets game? You know what I mean? Are we going to get, the Rams had a situation where they had to win this last week against the Cardinals in order to get into the playoffs. And that could have all been avoided if you just beat a team like the New York Jets. And they couldn't do that. It's not like they weren't playing for anything against that team. So, I mean, I've seen this Rams team play really, really bad. And Seattle is just kind of been Seattle all season. They've been steady. They've looked like the normal Seattle, Seahawks. They've looked good. So, like I said, the quarterback is the most important position in the NFL. So when it comes down late in a tight game, I think I'm going to take the guy who's going to, make the most plays, who I trust more. So I like the Seahawks to win. But again, I do agree with you too, Steve. I do think it's close to the 4 points with the Rams is interesting. We got the next game. This is going to be one of the better games of the first round, the wild card here. We got the Buccaneers at the Washington football team. This is at 8:15 on Saturday night. Tampa Bay is an 8-point favorite right now. I'm sure everybody's heard Chase Young after last game calling out Tom Brady, saying, "Tom Brady, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you." First thing I did, I saw that, I tweeted it out, man. I said, "Oh no, Chase Young." So you don't want to be doing that. You don't call out the GOAT. We've seen time and time again, whenever a defender calls out the GOAT, Tom Brady, he goes at them and other defenses pay for it. How do you see this game shaking out, man? Was that right for Chase Young to do that?
I told you that I was thinking about Washington, and then I saw that clip and I said, "That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Like you don't poke the bear.
No.
Like the last thing that you want to give Tom Brady is bulletin board material, because he's going to look at you and he's going to be like, I already know how to beat you 4 different ways, Chase Young."
Like, Tom's in the film room right now, just watching Chase Young right now.
I mean, it's game week. So, I mean, Tom knows what he's going to do. But the fact of the matter is, I keep seeing the spread go up. I think it's 9 now.
8. It's 8.
It's 8. I thought it went up to as high as 9 today. I thought I started at 9.
It might have. I have it at 8 right now.
And my thing is, from my experience as a Patriots fan and Tom, is if they are facing a good front four, like that's going to give Tom enough issues. And now, obviously, we don't know about the status of Mike Evans, so they're going to be down a lot. So you have to figure that this is going to be a game where Antonio Brown's really got to thrive, because, in my opinion, if the Buccaneers want to be successful in this game, it's because Tom's got to get the ball out very, very quick. Now, when I started thinking about the front four, Mark, I said, well, they also have Rob Gronkowski, the best blocking tight end in the history of tight ends. And I have a feeling that you're going to see Gronk lined up on a lot of the same side as Chase Young, and that's going to be the guy that utilizes and neutralizes Chase Young to the best of ability, because I think that they're going to have a play in hand where they're going to be able to run the ball to that side, because they're going to have that blocking. And then at the same time, it'll give Gronk a little chance to be able to get out and be able to do what he does. So I think the 9 is high. If it was me, I don't think that I would probably bet this game, Mark.
Yeah.
Because I guess I could see it from both ways. I do believe, though, that Tampa Bay is going to win.
Yeah.
But I do believe that it's going to be a lot tighter of a game than people are really giving it credit for.
Yeah. We got Caleb here saying, is Steve wearing a TB12 hat?
Yeah, I am wearing
He is, man. TB12's a GOAT, man.
But more or less, I just have to wonder, can Tampa Bay run the ball? And if they can run the ball, then that's exactly the way that they're going to end up beating Washington. Because I saw a thing with Ron Rivera. They just came out talking about he could be alternating quarterbacks this week between Alex Smith and I'm assuming it's Allen's back, right?
That would be Allen, yeah, because Dwayne Haskins got cut. He's not on the team anymore.
Yeah.
So
can you believe, though, that
I don't think that's going to happen. They're not going to take out Alex Smith.
How disrespectful can that be to Alex Smith that you get in the playoffs and you're going to be doing musical chairs all of a sudden?
We got Garrett here saying more like Tom is waking up at 2 a.m. after having nightmares about Chase Young. Listen, Tom Brady is not having nightmares about Chase Young. Trust me.
No, listen.
Like,
I like the kid's fire. That's just a kid that isn't educated enough to know what you can and what you can't say clearly.
Yeah, and I don't knock him for saying it, because like it's one of those things where, like, what do you expect him to say? Right? Maybe you just don't.
Running off the field.
Maybe you just don't say anything. Maybe you just don't say anything at all. But in that moment, you don't want him to say like he does not prepare for Tom. Obviously, you want your best defender to go out and say, "I'm going to get you."
You holler, and then if you get to the press conference and they ask you that question, then you answer that question. That was a preconceived thing. Like he already said that he was going to be yelling that coming
on the field.
He clearly knew who they were going to.
He knew when they won. He knew when they won that was going to happen.
Absolutely. Like he was dying to say that. Going to be like, this is going to be a great viral clip. No, it's going to be an education for you, on Sunday. So that know your role. But I will say though, with Washington getting Gibson and McLaurin back, you definitely saw an offense that was able to move the ball a lot more efficiently than they've done. Logan Thomas has been a great upgrade for them. I didn't even know Logan Thomas used to be a quarterback.
Yeah, and Alex Smith loves his tight ends.
Exactly.
So Logan Thomas over the last few weeks has been very key to that offense. And if they can mix it up with the run game and they get the run game going and the play action with Terry McLaurin, like Alex Smith isn't going to lose you this football game. He's going to be very, very solid. He's going to make the right plays at the right time. It's just going to be, honestly, it's going to come down to if they can put up enough points to match Tampa Bay, because I feel like Tampa Bay is like hitting their stride right now. They're playing very, very well. And yes, they might not have Mike Evans, But how good did Antonio Brown look last week in the absence of Mike Evans? Now Antonio Brown is getting these looks. Imagine having the insurance of having Antonio Brown out there if you have a receiver like Mike Evans go down. He's just going to get more looks, more of that intermediate stuff. Chris Godwin as well. Tom Brady loves those intermediate routes, so he has the perfect receivers now to do that, similar to what he had in New England. And obviously Gronk and the running game. We got Fournette and Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones had a hell of a season this year. So if they get that running game going, play action. Tom loves the play action. It could be a long day for the Washington football team.
But I will say, though, that Tampa Bay will be less efficient in the red zone because they don't have Mike Evans. Because Mike Evans is a touchdown machine, and he definitely changes things inside the 20 and inside the 10. Now, Gronk is important, and obviously, as a Patriots fan, I know how important Gronk is in the red zone.
Yeah.
But Mike Evans is the most important player for their red zone offense. So that's the only way that Washington theoretically, in my mind, can be in this game is if they can get touchdowns here and there, and then when it gets pushed to shove, that they only give up field goals, because it's very possible that they're able to pull that off, Mark.
Yeah, very true. It's as far as the spread is concerned, I mean, I kind of like Washington with the 8 points, getting the 8 points, especially if it goes up. Like you said, it was at 9. I mean, who knows? Maybe we could see it at 10 by the time kickoff.
I also like the under.
Do you? What is it right now? Do you know?
It's like 46.5.
Okay.
And that's just going into my game plan of how I think it's going to be. I think I'm interested to see how good Washington's offense is, and I'm also interested to see how good their red zone defense is. And I think that if their red zone defense is good, I think you're going to definitely see a game kind of reminiscent to early on in the season when Tampa Bay went to Chicago, and they seemed like they moved the ball up and down the field all game, but they could just not get the ball in the end zone. Now you're getting a different Rob Gronkowski. I think Gronk finally is in football shape. It took him about 15 weeks to be able to do it, but I think he's there.
The whole season?
I think he's there, and Tampa Bay's biggest asset is the fact that they have Ronald Jones, and we clearly saw that. Leonard Fournette's kind of washed up. Leonard Fournette's still going to give you maybe the once in a while breakaway run, that no one sees coming, or he's going to give you that 1 yard touchdown gash.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of LeGarrette Blount.
LeGarrette Blount, good comparison.
Thank you very much.
I like that. All right, let's move on to Sunday. We got day 2 of the wild card games. First game, we got a rematch from last year's divisional round. We have the Baltimore Ravens going to the Tennessee Titans. Baltimore's a 3-point favorite on the road, 3-point road favorite in this game. Even after the Titans last year, if you guys remember, this was the Derrick Henry's coming out party. He just absolutely gashed these guys in that upset win over them. Could be the best game of the weekend, potentially. I like Baltimore. I like Baltimore -3. I think Derrick Henry is going to have a good game. I think they're going to get his. But I just really like what Baltimore's doing right now. They are playing well. I think Lamar's kind of learned from his playoff failures. I think he's going to get over the hump, finally get his first playoff win. I just saw Tennessee this past week against a bad Houston team, basically fighting for their playoff life with no guarantee that they were going to get in, still playing for the division as the division was up for grabs with the Colts. And they almost lost that game. They let Houston get back in that thing. Every time Tennessee would score, they just couldn't get a stop defensively. And Baltimore is definitely going to be able to put up points this weekend. And if they could just somehow try to contain Derrick Henry and not let that run game go and make the Tennessee Titans one-dimensional, I think they could definitely pull out the win and cover that 3-point spread this week.
So they're the only team that's on the road this week that are favorites. Interesting. They are also a team that has lost 2 consecutive games to this team. They lost early on in the season, and we saw the bad blood that they had. We saw Tennessee.
Oh, they don't like each other.
Tennessee was taunting them in Baltimore. They were playing on the logo. They got a little John Harbaugh. All fired up. He was all upset. Mike Vrabel's licking his chops over there. Listen, that Tennessee team is going to come ready to play. They're going to play hard. Their coach he's a great coach.
Yeah, Vrabel's a very good coach.
He's a great motivator. Like, those guys are going to be ready to play. My thing is, do we not remember Lamar Jackson's last 2 playoff appearances?
Oh, yeah, not very good.
Like, are we going to just excuse the fact that he's 0-2 in the playoffs after the first year, like, throwing for 27 yards against the Chargers, and then coming back last year as the 1 seed and turning around and laying an absolute egg in the divisional round at home last year?
No, you don't excuse that.
So here's the play. You can't bet Baltimore outright, but what you can do is you can bet them first half. And the reason why I say you bet them first half is because everything that I've seen in the last 4 or 5 weeks from this team says that they come out and they dominate first halves.
Mhm.
That's what they do. They're very well prepared. But the second half, they've kind of fallen back. And you've got a Tennessee team that has found themselves in numerous holes this year that has put on some pretty impressive rallies to be able to overcome some pretty big deficits. They only did one against Cleveland this year when they were down, 32 at half.
Oh, yeah. They were yes, dude. I remember that game.
So the thing about Tennessee is, while we know about Derrick Henry and we know how important it is to have a horse like that in the playoffs, especially in cold weather. Nobody wants to tackle that guy in cold weather.
No.
You also have seen that Ryan Tannehill is actually a pretty good quarterback.
He just needed to change the scenery. That's all.
Last year wasn't a fluke. Ryan Tannehill can throw the ball when he needs to throw the ball.
Mhm.
He's got good wide receivers in A.J. Brown and Corey Davis.
Yep.
He's got a decent tight end in Jonnu Smith. You know, he's got some weapons around him. And the most important weapon that people don't really give him credit for, Mark, is the fact that he can run.
Oh, he has so many rushing touchdowns this season?
So we see a total at 55. I will say, though, that by far, Baltimore has been the highest scoring offense in the first half of games. If you're going to lay a bet, I would take Baltimore first half.
Okay.
I would not touch that full game, though, because I don't have an idea of – I think anybody can win that game.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely – it could go either way.
Why are we going to give an 0-2 Lamar Jackson in the playoffs the benefit of the doubt in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
I think the coaching is pretty even. You know, I think we're in an opposing team stadium in Baltimore. There's not going to be any fans there.
Yeah.
There's just going to be a lot of trash talking.
Yeah.
A lot of trash.
They don't have any fans in Tennessee, in Nashville?
They're not in Nashville.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. I'm not sure. I don't believe so. I don't know. These COVID things are so difficult this year. Some
teams got
10% capacity, 25%.
You don't know what teams got fans.
It doesn't really matter. It's all going to be crowd noise.
That's true. That's true.
I do believe, though, the first half play is Baltimore, but I don't think I can touch a spread. I really can't give you a pick on this game. I really don't have a clue who's going to win this ball game.
Yeah, I think Baltimore is going to win. I think Lamar gets it this year. I think he turns it around. Lamar Jackson is too good to not eventually get his first playoff win. I think it comes this year. The first year against the Chargers, I mean, that offense wasn't really built around him yet. That was when if you remember that game, I think that game he threw he barely had any pass attempts that game. We obviously know Lamar's a better passer than what was when he was a rookie. I think it was his rookie year where he took over. He's definitely a better passer than that. They didn't even allow him to throw the ball, basically. And then last year, Tennessee they just had a great defensive game plan against them. He was the MVP last year, but obviously he just, shit the bed in the playoffs. Just call it like it is. But Lamar Jackson is too good of a player, in my opinion, to not eventually get that first one and get over the hump. And at a team, even though Tennessee has won the last 2 meetings, they know the Tennessee Titans. They've prepared for them. They know what Tennessee wants to do against them, and so they should be prepared as well. They're well coached. John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
A Super Bowl winning quarterback?
No, Super Bowl winning coach.
Let's try this again.
Super Bowl winning coach.
This is John Harbaugh.
Yeah.
And he coaches the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm thinking about Jim, my 49ers days. I almost said Jim.
And he beat Jim.
He did.
To win the Super Bowl.
So let's not talk about it.
AKA Ray Lewis going out on top.
AKA Lightgate.
Lightgate.
Remember that? Yeah, so I do think Baltimore has a chance to win this week. Next game, this could be a pretty good game, too. Bears and Saints. We got the Saints as a 10-point favorite right now. 4:40 p.m. on Sunday. I like the over in this game.
Yeah, I agree.
Bears have scored over 30 points minus this past week. Before this past week, they've scored over 30 points in their last 4 straight games. Trubisky has, when he took back over for Nick Foles, has actually looked pretty good. He's decent. He's not, a Pro Bowler or anything like that. He's not a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he's looked pretty good. Dave Montgomery has been really, really good in the run game. I think the Saints are getting Thomas back, Michael Thomas.
They are.
Kamara should be good to go as long as he passes his COVID test. So the Saints should have their full complement of weapons in that dome in New Orleans. I think it's going to be very high scoring. I think New Orleans wins, but if I think it's going to be high scoring, I obviously think it's going to be close. And so I do like Chicago also getting 10 points as well.
Yeah, tough game because it has a backdoor cover written all over it. I think the Saints are definitely going to be in control the whole way through, and I think people have forgotten how good the Drew Brees Michael Thomas connection really truly is, because we really haven't got to see it a lot this season. But if Michael Thomas is ready to go,
Mhm.
and he's even 80% of the man he is,
Yeah.
he's going to have 11 for 175 yards on Sunday. Like, you can mark that down. If you want to play DFS this week, make sure
Play Michael Thomas.
Make sure Michael Thomas is in your DFS lineup
Mhm.
because Drew Brees has severely missed him. And you're talking about an allotment of receivers where you've got Emmanuel Sanders on one side, you got Michael Thomas on the other side. You've got Jared Cook, who's a pretty good solid.
Jared Cook is a very good tight end.
You have a very solid run game, and then you have the utility guy in Taysom Hill, who's I'm sure is going to be doing some trickery things that you've never seen that Sean Payton's been holding right in the chamber this whole season.
Mhm.
So I know that from a coaching standpoint, Sean Payton is going to make Matt Nagy look terrible in that game. And I just can't see it from the idea of where Chicago can really give the Saints fits, because the fact of the matter is Saints got one of the best rush defenses in the league.
Yeah.
So this idea that David Montgomery's had some sort of rebirth and he's doing something great, I want you to go back and I want you to look at the last 4 or 5 games of who the Chicago Bears have played. They played 3 of the worst defenses in the NFL. They've had every opportunity to score points. So while, yes, Mitch has been a lot better, you saw it when it came into a big spot in the second half against the Green Bay Packers. So, like, they only scored 3 points.
Mhm.
They couldn't put drives together. Mitch Trubisky was going to be Mitch Trubisky, and that's what I'm ultimately going to throw my hat on to, Mark, is the fact that I'm going to take the Saints, and I'm fully expecting that Mitch Trubisky is going to throw 3 interceptions in that game, and one of them is going to get returned to the house, which is going to end the Chicago season. So, very confident in the Saints this week. I think that line is rightfully high so, and I think it's going to get chumps like you to kind of bite on it and be like, that's a lot of points.
Chumps like me.
That's a lot of points.
You just said it had backdoor cover written all over it.
That's it. That's all it's got. That's all it got. It's going to be a game that New Orleans is going to control from start to finish.
Yeah.
And you might get a miracle backdoor that's going to get inside the number.
Oh, no,
it's
man.
not going to be deserved.
They played earlier this year, 26-23. Saints won by 3 points in overtime.
In where, though?
It was in Chicago.
Okay, exactly.
So what?
Who's that saying they're going to beat them Saints? Not in NOLA, dude.
Not in New Orleans.
You don't come into the dome.
Montgomery, 21 carries, 89 yards against that Saints rush defense.
Not in the dome.
It's different in the dome?
It's way different.
With no fans?
It does.
It's just a neutral site
it's
at that point.
It's a dome with piped in crowd noise. Like, that thing is going to be revved and roaring. You're going to be able to hear those people chanting all the way down. Is Mardi Gras even running right now?
Trubisky didn't even play last game. That was Nick Foles.
Yeah, it was Big Dick Nick.
Big Dick Nick.
He's nowhere to be found.
No, so you're going to assume they're going to be better, I would say.
My question to you is, and no one's really talked about this, like, if you have known that Nick Foles is a playoff quarterback, is this the time that you throw Nick Foles back into?
Dude, no, because when Nick Foles took over, like, the Bears were like, what were they, 4-1, and then Nick Foles lost 5 games in a row?
Not in the playoffs, though.
It doesn't matter.
Nick Foles wins.
Nick Foles lost 5 games in a row, so they had to go back to Trubisky. You don't go back to Foles.
Did Foles get hurt?
No.
I thought he got hurt.
He just sucked.
I think he got hurt.
They lost 5 games in a row.
Yeah.
He got yanked.
He did get yanked.
Exactly.
But
you don't go back. You don't switch, then switch back, and then switch back.
Nick Foles wins playoff games, does he not?
One time.
What do you mean one time?
He won with the Eagles. That was it. When's the other play? He won a playoff. Other than that,
the next season they won the first playoff game, didn't they?
No,
I think so.
No, he didn't even start the next year.
I think he did.
Wentz got the job back.
No, but not for the playoffs. He lost it again for the playoffs. He got hurt right before the playoffs.
Dude, Nick doesn't win anything.
I don't know about that, Mark.
Nick won a Super Bowl. That's
All I'm
it.
saying is,
but Carson Wentz's team.
Take New Orleans and be happy, because I'll tell you people right now.
You could take New Orleans and be happy, and then when the Bears backdoor cover, Steve can be like, well, I told you that they were going to backdoor cover.
Mark, that's not a way to approach a game, to think that they could possibly lose on a backdoor. But I will say this, from top to bottom, the New Orleans Saints are a far better team. They've got Drew Brees back. They've got everybody that they need to get back. All I'm saying is, if New Orleans was going to go off, it's going to be this week. And I feel like the team that I told you that was going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs is here. This is the team right now. If there was a team that I'm going to pick to come out of the NFC this year, it's the New Orleans Saints. No doubt in my mind that the New Orleans Saints are coming out of the NFC. If the team that I want to see performs on Sunday.
So you think New Orleans is going to come out of the NFC, right? You just said that the reason they played such a close game was because they played outside the dome in Chicago.
Sure.
You think they can go on the road to Lambeau and beat Green Bay?
They might not have to go on the road to go to Lambeau and beat Green Bay.
You
It's a little tricky.
you think Tommy's coming?
All I know is there's a guy.
You think Tommy's coming?
You have a guy that has never won in Mark. You want to talk about narratives? This brain has been thinking of the playoff narratives all the way through. You've got a guy in Tom Brady who has never. There's only one NFL stadium that he's never won it. You know where that
Lambeau
is?
Field.
Where would he be playing in round 2?
Lambeau Field. Maybe unless the Bears beat the Saints, then he doesn't have to go to Lambeau Field.
0% chance of that happening. But all I know is that people are going to be like, it's the Bucs versus the Saints. And then in Brady's head, it's going to be like, this is the evolution of my career to win in every stadium that is.
To take out Aaron Rodgers, to take out Drew Brees.
Exactly.
Brees is retiring after this year.
Take out Drew Brees.
Brees is retiring, man. This is.
I don't think he's going to take out Drew Brees.
You don't think so?
No. They gotta
you don't think Tampa Bay can win in New Orleans?
No, I don't. Wow. I don't.
Your boy, dude.
But we're not talking about that now. We're talking about why you're talking about New Orleans possibly having to go to Lambeau Field.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I don't think they're going to have to go to Lambeau.
But if they do, because the road goes through Lambeau, right? They got home field advantage throughout. So if they do got to go to Lambeau, how do you see that playing out?
We'll have to talk about it when we get to it.
First, you got to get past the monsters of the Midway.
Exactly.
0% chance that happens.
0% chance that happens.
Next game that night, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. Pittsburgh is a 6-point favorite in that game. And the another division matchup between these two teams. Third time that they're going to meet up. I think we'd take the similar approach to the Rams game and Seahawks game is we got to take the under in this one, right? Knock down, drag out. You think it's going to be over?
I think that.
So everything we just said about the Rams and Seahawks doesn't apply to Browns Steelers.
No, because I think that you're going to get everybody back healthy. I think you're going to get a Pittsburgh run game that has sorely missed James Conner, and we're going to see exactly how important that run game is.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, though, and you've seen the line jump. It's just because they don't even know if they don't have a head coach. You know, it doesn't even look like Stefanski's going to be able to.
Such a crazy fucking storyline to throw into this weekend. And like, what has Cleveland been doing? Because over the last few weeks, COVID has just been running through that city and that team.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's got to get at some point. There's got to be an investigation that goes on.
I don't know, but it's so Cleveland that the team will not even have a head coach possibly for their first playoff game in like what?
2 decades.
So, yeah, all the odds are stacked against Cleveland in this situation. They've got a quarterback that's got great moxie though in
Baker Mayfield.
So a guy that thrives on it. But push comes to shove, I think that people aren't really thinking that Big Ben's going to be able to execute well against this Cleveland Browns team. I completely disagree. I think their offense is just going to be fine this week. I think it's a great opportunity then for them to push down the field with the ball in both areas of the game. They've got all their receivers back now. They've got their running backs back now. So there should be no problem on one game. I do believe, though, that Cleveland's going to be able to put up some points versus this Pittsburgh Steelers team. So if I had to put something one way or the other way, I would put it towards the over. But right now, it's hard for me to back Cleveland in this game, just knowing that they're going to be without some key minds possibly for this game. We're talking about 3 coaches right now that are down with COVID, and they had 2 undisclosed players that came down with it too. So once those 2 undisclosed players come out, then contract tracing happens, and then whoever they were huddled with is going to be out too. So we've got to wait for the dominoes to really fully affect. But clearly, Vegas and the Sharps have clearly already know who the guys in the circles are already.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the line shift 2 points in the matter of about 5 hours since that news came out.
Mm-hmm. My thinking behind it about taking that under there was that you do have James Conner back, and so obviously they're going to try to get him involved. And then you also have Cleveland with their running game and Nick Chubb, who's arguably could be one of the top running back in the league. Obviously, Kareem Hunt causes a lot of problems. I think both teams are going to try to initiate and try to start the run and try to start things off running to open up play action and stuff like that. But if they can continue to get long drives, run the ball, get a couple of first downs, things like that, I think that's a lot of long possessions, a lot of clock running, and that's Cleveland's strength is their run game. It isn't Baker throwing the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Like they've definitely laid on that backbone. I mean, their defense needs to show up. It'll be another great opportunity for
Hmm.
Miles Garrett to showcase himself on Sunday. Cleveland's got to be able to put up or shut up at this point. So, like I said, it's going to be it's another division rival. We talked about it.
Hmm.
Third time they faced each other.
And Pittsburgh's defense is no joke. I mean, T.J. Watt, they got a lot of good guys on that defensive end.
I think Pittsburgh
Joe Hayden.
ready to go, but I don't expect
Joe Hayden revenge game.
Yeah. Listen, I never put a revenge game back. The only time I would put it's different, right? Basketball's fine. Revenge games are fine in that. Football's kind of weird. It's an ultimate team game.
Yeah, that's true.
There's so many different areas where a guy can only do so much to be able to change the narrative of having a revenge game in the NFL.
Yeah,
maybe a quarterback,
but that's about it.
Exactly.
Yep, completely agree with that. That's going to wrap it up for Wild Card Weekend. So I should have a bunch of great games. Want to jump into the NBA really quickly. We're almost through 3 full weeks in the NBA season right now, and there have been a lot of surprises this season between players and teams and success and teams flopping a little bit. We'll do a couple each, man. What's some of your biggest surprises in the NBA?
I'm going to start with the Knicks.
The Knickerbockers.
And I know that's pretty much the hot topic right now is the Knicks, but I have to say I love NBA teams that actually play defense. And the Knicks are not the most skilled team. They have a collection of young players. But the thing I'm most fascinated with them early on in the season is the fact that they were a team that did not get to play together in the bubble. They were a team that's been off for a very long time. They have a lot of young pieces. They have 2 draft picks that get substantial minutes right now, and Emmanuel Quickley, who's one of them in their lineup. And they've got a new head coach in Tom Thibodeau, who we know, Mark, as a Celtics stan, back in the day. Like,
Celtics stands.
Tom Thibodeau.
Defensive guru.
Exactly. And he coaches hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why Jimmy Butler loved him so much. And I think that's why Jimmy Butler was molded so well was because Tom Thibodeau is that kind of tough-nosed, if you're not going to play hard for me, you're not going to play at all.
Yep.
And when you've got a bunch of young guys buying into that early on in the season, like I said, they're not the most skilled.
No.
But playing hard for 4 quarters gets you some wins early on in the year. They had a game where they smacked Milwaukee. They had another one the other night where they beat a good Atlanta team.
Oh, yeah.
They also beat Indiana, which I think is going to be a solid top 5 team in the Eastern Conference this year. So they beat some good teams early on in the year. And most importantly, when they played the Tampa Bay Raptors, they were in that game all the way through, and they shot 3 of 37 from the line.
From the 3-point line.
The 3-point line, yeah. So Julius Randle's playing like an all-star right now.
That's what I mean. He's averaging almost a triple-double this year. He's got 7 assists. He's over 10 rebounds a game, almost 20 points a game, I believe. The guy's playing like a reborn, revamped guy. And like you said, it has to do with coaching. Like Thibodeau just demands this from his team, and he needs his guys to buy in or else they're not going to play. It's not like before the Knicks would just go through the motions. And I think this is kind of just a shot out of the cannon early on in the season. I don't think this is something the Knicks can sustain just because offensively, I just don't think they have the firepower to match up with obviously once the better teams in the East get the groove back and get going, and like the Brooklyns and the Milwaukee Bucks and the Heat, things like that. Like the Knicks are probably going to be in the bottom end of the East again. Maybe the Knicks can somewhat surprise us and make a play-in game or something like that with the tournament. Who knows? But it's going to be tough to sustain this for the whole season.
For surprises. And what I know about anything in this world is that there are contenders and there are pretenders. Do I think the Knicks are a contender right now? Absolutely not.
No, but the Knicks are never a finals contender. But to think that they couldn't be a 9 or a 10 seed is not out of the question with how they're playing.
Well, I mean, that would be a success for them.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Success. But when it ultimately comes down to it, there's going to be teams like Cleveland. Cleveland is not a good team. But yet Cleveland was 3-0 at one point in this season.
Sexland.
So all I'm saying is like, you get a young collection of players. People don't really know how to prepare for these guys yet. You play hard. You put the ball in the hoop. Once teams start to get a handle on who these guys are, and like I said, I think I was more stunned by the lack of preparation most of these young teams had coming into the season because they didn't have much of a camp. Draftees only had so much time to be able to get ready to be able to play with their team. I think one of the biggest downfalls to the season is the fact that there was no summer league.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a summer league to be able to not only find the back end of your bench, but to give your draft picks some much needed minutes, because you and I both know that summer league is important for so many different reasons. It's
Aaron Neesmith could use a summer league.
we know that from any pro sport, like game speeds are everything, right?
Mhm.
They always talk about rookies get to the league and they're like, wow, this NBA game is really fast. And then we see it come where then all of a sudden they get sped up and they start getting hooked too fast. And you see it with
Mhm.
guys like Jason Tatum now. Like when the game is when you're finally great and then you can slow the game down and do what you need to do, like
Mhm.
all of a sudden you become a lot different. You become a lot better and you become a lot more in control of what you're doing at any point. And then right now you're seeing a lot of young teams like Cleveland's, the Sextons, the Garlands on that team. Like they start falling down
Mhm.
and they start making rookie mistakes.
Yes.
Like it's unsustainable. Like that's why they talk about the rookie wall. So as far as the Knicks go, they're different because they've actually come out and said we're going to play defense. This is the way that we're going to be about it.
And no one does that in the NBA.
Nobody does that in the NBA anymore. Like it's just ever since they instituted the shot clock reduction off the rim to 14
To 14,
seconds,
yeah.
it's completely altered the way teams play now.
Yeah.
Like and I think that's what the NBA ultimately wanted. They want the high scoring games. So it doesn't benefit them enough because they're going to be able to try to find some way to score more points. And I don't think there's enough players on that team to be able to find another 20-point score. I think Julius Randle's playing a little over his head right now. But if you're a Knicks fan, you really haven't had much to cheer about in a really long time. I think you should be very pleased with the way they started off this year.
And look at us talking about how nobody plays defense in the NBA. We're sitting here losing years off our life by betting NBA unders constantly.
Well, we believe in some sort
We believe. My first surprise of this season, I am going down to Tampa Bay at the Tampa Bay Raptors. This is a negative surprise. They started the season. They are 1-5. We just saw them most recently last night against the Celtics, and they were up what? They had a double-digit lead at the end of the first quarter. It was like 33-23 or something like that. And then the Celtics just stormed them and ended up they had a 20-point lead for most of the second half, and game got a lot closer in the final minutes than it actually was. But just surprising for Toronto to come out this way because they were actually picked and they have a lot of the key guys in the same core from last season outside of Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka. I mean, they did replace Marc Gasol with Aaron Baines, who Marc Gasol's better than Aaron Baines, don't get me wrong, but they're similar players. They're both big guys. They can both step out and shoot the three. So, it's just, to me, Pascal Siakam's not that guy. He's not a number one to me in my book. His most successful season was with when Kawhi was there, where nobody really knew who he was. He had a great year that year. Last year he made the All-Star team, but then after once teams started figuring him out, especially in the bubble, he hasn't been the same since. He's kind of a one-trick pony. He gets into the lane and does that little spin move. And we even saw a guy like Peyton Pritchard yesterday pull the chair out from underneath him when he tried. It's like people are figuring this guy out. Outside of him, I mean, Fred VanVleet's their most consistent player right now. And I don't know what it is with them. Maybe it's being in Tampa Bay. Maybe it's not having their families around because they're not in a bubble, but it's similar where not many people had their families go down there because Florida, as we know, doesn't give a shit about COVID. So a lot of teams didn't have their family go down, have their kids go to school where nobody cares, where there's a chance that they could contract COVID, give it to the players passes through, and then all of a sudden we have an NBA shutdown. So being away from their families, kind of on this season trip. I mean, I don't know what it is, but to me, it's just surprising for them to be 1-5. And I know it's early; they could turn it around, but for that team to be 1-5 is just shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean, they've been in the upper echelon. I mean, I think we both agree though that last year, and I said this, I think I made this comparison a long time ago. That team reminded me of the year when Jordan was not playing for the Bulls. And that Bulls team still found a way to win 50 regular season games. And people were stunned by that, right? Like all of a sudden Michael Jordan's not playing and that team is able to win 50 games. Like that was shocking. It was kind of the same way with Toronto last year. They still had all of their good pieces, but they didn't have Kawhi Leonard. So in a regular season format, like playing a game against a different opponent every night, like it gave teams fits. Now we don't talk about it, but I mean we're talking about a team that lost Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka. So is it surprising to me that this team is struggling early on in the season? Absolutely not. I think that this guard play is going to eventually get them back where they need to go. But you're seeing guys like Boucher on that team right now, who's very raw but very good.
Mhm.
And he's going to find his footing right now. And in terms of their other one, what is it? It's not Alex Len. Who's their other center right now?
Alex Len,
Alex Len.
Alex Len, Aaron Baines, and Boucher.
Aaron Baines is a good backup center. I don't think Baines is a good starting center for that team. So I think everything that they did well was the fact that they had bigs that could step out and shoot the ball. And you talk about Pascal Siakam being struggling doing what he does. Well, think about it this way, Mark. Pascal Siakam really doesn't have a clear lane to be able to do the things he needs to do because they don't have a big that's really stretching the other bigs teams out so far. So I think that's something that they've got to try to figure out because, like you said, Pascal Siakam is important. I don't think you could say Pascal Siakam's not that guy. I think it's unfair because in the first season that Kawhi Leonard was not on that team, he became an all-star, a starting all-star at to boot. So you can't really go that route just yet. I do believe that their guard play is a lot better. I think Fred VanVleet continues to grow. I think Kyle Lowry is a dancing diva, but he's still going to get the calls that he needs to get. And then
let's get it trending.
And then ultimately, they have a good enough bench of guys that can get them going in a game where they're not doing so great. So yes, it's they shouldn't be 1-5 to begin the season. You're correct, but I definitely do believe that they're missing their bigs. And you might not know like Nick Nurse, but I think Nick Nurse is one of the better coaches in the NBA.
Oh, I didn't say that. I don't like him, but I do think he's the best coach in the NBA.
You think he's the best coach in the NBA?
Right now, I do.
Okay, so he's 1-5. You're coming at them, yet
I still think he's the best coach in the NBA.
That's a hell of an endorsement.
I mean, he's the best coach in the NBA. I think he is. How is he not?
I mean, I just didn't think that you were going to take that stance right now. That's all.
Yeah, no, I like him as a coach. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't like his attitude. Like when just after that Celtics series last year, he had a lot of games where he was talking about the refs and he was blaming officials for their losses. Like you don't need to do that as a coach. Like just go out there and be better and coach your team up. But what they did last year, just as an indictment to him, to lose Kawhi and to have that record that they did last year, finish as a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And the year before, they took a team that was basically just put together. Kawhi's first year, a lot of those guys, Danny Green's first year on that team, and he was able to lead them to a championship. They caught some breaks. KD and Clay didn't play. They got hurt in the finals. You know what I mean? But to lead that team, I mean, that's from the Greg Popovich coaching tree. I mean, it's a good job. I think he's top. I mean, think about the coaches in the NBA. Spoelstra, I agree Spoelstra's up there. I think Brad Stevens is up there. Vogel's up there. But, I think Nick Nurse is at the top of the game right now.
Bold prediction, Toronto's going to make the playoffs. So let's move on.
That's not a bold prediction. That is not a bold prediction. What do you got for your second surprise this year?
My second surprise has to be the Philadelphia 76ers.
Really?
And what a difference a coach makes. Because
coaching, it's not just coaching, but coaching and personnel.
Exactly. So everybody was down on Philadelphia this year, where they were talking about preseason possibly splitting up Embiid, Simmons. Is Harden going to come? What's going to happen? That was the main focus. But I think people forgot how important it is that Doc Rivers is now that head coach. Now, people are going to say that Doc Rivers is overrated, and rightfully so. People can say that because he hasn't won a championship since 2008, and he's gone to two different certain organizations that has given him an opportunity to win a championship. But I will say that when you bring up the personnel aspect, I think that was a perfect add to what I was trying to get to. And when you bring in guys that you can surround with those guys, like the shooters that they have, and not to mention, Tobias Harris has played out of his mind early on in the season.
I think 22 a game he's averaging right now.
He was the Eastern Conference Player of the Week.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have been. But that's neither here nor there.
He was.
I know.
And it is what it is. But Joel Embiid's playing at a high level right now. But they look comfortable. They look happy. And most importantly, that team is stressing defense. And we'll talk about it again, guys. In the NBA, if you play good defense, you're gonna be a good team.
Oh yeah, you're gonna win. You're gonna win games. It's
crazy.
It's like basketball 101. Like who would have thought if we play defense, we can actually win basketball games?
Exactly. It's stunning to me, but the fact of the matter is Philadelphia is playing the best defense in the NBA right now. And it is showing on both sides of the court right now because one of the things that they like to do with Ben Simmons is they like to get out and run. And then on the other end of it, Joel's being a monster on the boards, and you can't really disagree with anything that I'm saying in that facet because They have a really good, well-rounded team right now, and that a team that can give a lot of teams issues right now in the NBA.
And what did we see from Philadelphia the year when they went to the Eastern Conference second round semifinals, Game 7 against Toronto, where Kawhi hit that last second shot? That's the furthest Philly's been with this core of Simmons and Embiid. And that year, they surrounded Simmons and Embiid with shooters. They had Butler. They had, obviously, Tobias Harris. J.J. Redick was on that team. So you got away from that last season. And then, obviously, you see what happened. Philly has a down year. Simmons ends up getting hurt in the playoffs. So that was tough for them. But you come back this year, you get a new coach. You change the culture there. You give Doc a chance to make it work. Who, in my opinion, Doc is a good coach, but I think he's one of the most overrated coaches in the NBA. He's with the teams that he's had so many chances to win championships that he just hasn't been able to get over the hump. Consistently exits in the playoffs and whatnot. But to have the shooters there, Seth Curry, who's shooting unbelievable percentage this year. Danny Green had a hell of a game. I know we all make fun of Danny Green for his playoff performance and his finals performance with the Lakers, but at the end of the day, Danny Green is a knockdown three-point shooter. And you surround those guys with guys like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid who command double teams at any given point. All you got to do is just sit there and knock down shots. Like, what an easy job for an NBA player, especially a three-point specialist.
So I have to pose this question to you.
Yeah.
So Doc got to play with Austin, got to coach his son, Austin Rivers. Now you know where I'm going to get with
Yeah.
All right. It clearly didn't work out too well. So now, for you, those you don't know,
he actually, this is funny. The Sixers wanted to get him this year, and Doc said no. Don't get him. Don't bring him on the team. Doc didn't want to coach him.
But then he turned around and he was like, "But my daughter is married to a Curry." A Seth Curry.
All right, let's get Seth.
And let's get Seth over here and let's get him in the mix. Yeah. And Seth Curry has been absolutely fantastic playing for daddy-in-law.
Daddy-in-law. Stepdaddy.
Daddy-in-law. And I think that's been one of the quietest key acquisitions in the whole NBA season so far because Seth Curry is becoming a J.J. Redick type of player at this point. And I think that Seth Curry's emergence in the NBA, man, did that guy have to really work hard?
Oh, yeah. And he was obviously you have Steph, who was a two-time MVP and the first unanimous MVP. So when that guy is your brother, you're obviously going to be in his shadow a little bit. And just remember, like, Seth is the guy that went to Duke. Steph is the one that went to the mid-major. Seth went to Duke. Seth is a player, but he worked he was in the G League. He went, he was on a couple different teams, but he finally found a role in Dallas last year. With Luka and those guys, it was really able to show out. And he was one of the best shooters percentage-wise in the whole NBA last year from three-point range. And obviously having that connection to Doc with his daughter and stuff. When you're looking to surround yourself with shooters, why not go after Seth Curry?
Absolutely. So I definitely believe that that's been a very big pickup. And you talked about it, like in a year when they had J.J. Redick, like that's when the Sixers were like awesome. And basically when they went out and they said, we can't get a J.J. Redick, but I'll take a Seth Curry right now. And it's a guy that can get hot for you.
Yeah, and at this point in their career, it's probably better.
Exactly.
Yep. So my second surprise this year, who had this team had the best record in the NBA up until their most recent loss to the Clippers, but it was the Phoenix Suns. You know, they had a lot of acquisitions. They got rid of Kelly Oubre. They add in Chris Paul to go along with Booker, DeAndre Ayton. They add in Jay Crowder from Miami, who Jay Crowder has been playing unbelievable the last few years in the NBA. He's a sniper from three-point range. They just got a very good team over there. I had projected them to be a top 5 team in the NBA, make the play. I'm not in the NBA, I'm sorry, in the West, and to make the playoffs. But I didn't think they'd be this good this early, especially with all the new additions. But it just goes to show you, like, Chris Paul is just, no matter what team he's on, this guy is just, he changes everything. Like, he goes to Houston, and they're one win away from beating the greatest team ever. And then he goes to OKC with a bunch of no-names who wasn't even supposed to be anything, and he leads them to the 5th seed in the Western Conference last year for the playoffs. And now we got him in Phoenix, and now Devin Booker finally gets a chance to play, get some wins, and that team is just playing very, very good right now, and they're doing better than I thought they would, even though I thought they'd finish in the top 5. But to be the best team in the NBA early on, obviously up until a couple days ago, so a little surprising to me.
Oh yeah, I mean, they definitely were the darling coming off that 8-0 bubble run that they had last year. So obviously they had some good mojo coming into the season. They make some key acquisitions in the offseason. talking about Chris Paul as one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to figure that that's a very disciplined point guard that would help that team become well-rounded and understand how to win games late in ball games, because you need a point guard like that late in ball games. Like, it's nice to have a killer in Devin Booker to be able to get you the points. It's nice to have an ascending center that's starting to really find his legs on both the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, you need that general. And I don't think anybody roots more for Chris Paul than me, just because I think there's some guys that should be able to touch some sort of success in the playoffs at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think that guy's never even made it to the championship.
He's never made it to the finals,
and we talked about that one year when he was in Houston where he hurt his, I believe it was his hamstring, and he never even got to play in that Game 7. Missed half of Game 6. They probably could have won that Game 6. So it was an opportunity for him to be able to finally get to the finals and do something. And that's something that's definitely avoided him. And I think that's been the huge knock on his career going forward.
Just hasn't been able to get over the top.
He hasn't had that proper success, but I think he's comfortable now in these ideas of being like, all right, I just have to lead now. I just have to lead, and that's my role. And
he's like very comfortable as like a mentor in the leadership role, right?
Because Mark, like last year when he got traded to OKC, like everyone was like, oh, he's not going to want to play.
Yeah.
He's going to want to get traded, you know, and it was the complete opposite. He took his role. He ran with it. He then turned around and was a big brother to a lot of those young
Shy Alexander,
you know, which he called Little Chris.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and he ran with it. And that perception of Chris Paul as this guy that's all about himself and want to win now and just worry about himself, it just wasn't true. It wasn't true. And if he can kind of take that same mentality with this Phoenix Suns team, yeah, Mark, I think their ceiling is maybe the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that's a good accomplishment for them.
That's a very good accomplishment for them.
So yeah, I definitely think that they are on a good track so far early on in the season. Definitely surprising. They've definitely played some good teams.
Chris Paul's just one of those guys where you just want him to win a championship. Like, he's one of those guys in the NBA. He's put his time in. Like, you want to see him get a ring. Yeah. Moving on, guys, we're going to talk about quick thing before we get off here. We're going to talk about a couple of trends we're seeing as far as betting and stuff in the college basketball season this year. A lot of conferences are doing these back-to-back games where you'll play the same team either back-to-back nights, or you'll get like a day off in between games, but you'll play the same team twice in a row. Similar to what the NBA is kind of doing, so to limit travel and stuff like that.
We'll mold it all together because like a lot of the NBA is doing the exact same thing. They're having back-to-back games against the same exact team. So like these trends kind of go hand in hand right now. Yeah,
so there we go. We can put it into the NBA. But I'll let Steve kind of break this one down because he had mentioned it to me today. But what are you seeing between these games as far as on the betting end of it?
So what Mark is talking about is each sport is trying to eliminate the most travel that they possibly can have. So you're seeing a lot of teams, and the Ivy was the only team that ever did this. They used to have Friday night games, Saturday night games against the same opponents, and that's how they would fill out their division, their conference. Now you're seeing that with a lot of mid-major schools so far early on in the season, like where they're playing a team and then they're playing that same team the next day. The only conference that I haven't seen that's done that so far is the Mountain West.
Like, what did we bet? The game where we had the under in? Who was that team? But either way, they played the night before, and it was
Siena and Monmouth.
Siena and Monmouth. And they played the night before. Siena it was their first game of the season. They won by 2 points. It was 77-75. Monmouth, from what we know and read about them, is they love to get a lot of threes up. So what Siena's coach wanted to do was he wanted to slow the pace. He wanted to limit their possessions. And from the get-go, it was 2-0, 5-2. Like, from the get-go, he was telling the team to slow it down. Every time they got the ball, slow it down, bring it up court, use the whole shot clock, get a good possession off, get a good shot. And so you'll see that. Now, he knew to do that from the night before. The night before, it was a little slow start, but then it turned into a three-point fest. They started knocking down shots after shot. And so you learn these in-game adjustments so quickly, and you see that team again the next day, you're able to do that. And it just, something to look out for when you're betting these games. And like Steve said, if you get a good line with that underdog team, that next game, like Boise State, I think, what was it the next night? That team was a minus 26.5.
They went from
plus 20, plus 26.5.
They were 20-point favorite the first night, and then they went up to 27.5 the second.
Because they had just won by 57.
Exactly.
So think about that. You're getting 7 extra points or 6.5 extra points, and they're 26.5. And now the team is playing the same team that they just played. You learn a few things from playing that team. coaches, I mean, these guys are college coaches, right? They got that job for a reason. They should know how to make adjustments, and they do. And now the game's a lot closer. So if you can get a nice spread like that, you might take it.
You have no home fans. There's no air in the arena. It's just you versus the other team.
Mhm.
You know, so all you can do honestly is, you know, do the best you can do. And with college sports, it's all about effort. You know, the teams that give the best effort and turn over the ball the least are the ones that end up being in the games at the very, very end. So it's been different, Mark,
Mhm.
but it's definitely an adjustment people have to look at, because I believe that losers of the first game in the series have come back to cover spreads 69% of the time in the second game. And when you're a bettor, you're looking for any sort of edge that you possibly
Trends,
can
baby,
get.
trends.
So you're not going to win them all, but the goal is to be 60 to 62%.
You want to be profitable.
Exactly. So you've got to pick your spots. So right now, the hottest trending bet right now in the league is Drake. Drake has covered, and this is astonishing.
Yeah.
If you've been on Drake since the late 2018 season, up until now, they've covered 78% of their games. That's
a wild stat.
That's astonishing. This season, they've covered every game that they've played in so far. So it's one of those things that, like, the best thing about betting is that you have to understand that you're not going to win every time, right, Mark? So
yep. 100%.
So the better, like, we might turn around bet Drake this week. They might lose, right? And then what does an amateur bettor do? Doesn't touch that team ever again.
Yep.
Why?
But we're going to be right back on Drake.
You got to get right back on him, because odds say that they're going to come back and they're going to get it done the next time.
They're going to cover the next two games.
It's a progress. You got to stick with it. You got to find these trends. You got to do whatever you can do to be able to profit in any sort of fashion. You're seeing it in the NBA now. They're getting the same sort of difference with these back-to-back games. These games are a lot tighter. We're seeing it tonight with a very bad Memphis Grizzlies team.
Yeah.
Played LA the other night.
Yep.
Memphis was a 10-point underdog. Right now they're up at halftime.
Yep.
You know, so it's just about adjustments. It's about playing together. It's doing these different things. And yeah, like, trends are everything when it comes to college sports. Like, you got to look at that. And the number one thing that I will say is the one thing that we've been doing lately, we've been attacking undefeated teams.
Yes.
Because what do we know about basketball? You don't go undefeated.
No.
And I think this idea of these back-to-backs really came to front was when Gonzaga played Northwestern State 2 nights in a row. Now, Northwestern State is a bottom 5 Division I basketball team. The worst of the worst.
They're not any good, is what he's saying.
They're the worst of the worst. The first night they came out versus Gonzaga, exactly what you thought was going to happen. They won. Gonzaga won by 39. And all you saw was Northwestern, who was a high-paced team, was trying to play at Gonzaga's pace that whole time. You know what they did the next night? They drained every clock that they possibly could do. They decided that they were going to take one shot and they were going to use 25 to 30 seconds.
So it's coaching adjustments that we talked about.
They didn't win the game, Mark, but they only lost by 11. And that is against the
which means they covered the spread.
Which is against the best team in the nation. You know, and they were able to do that because, you know, it was just getting a grasp on, like, what is the actual game plan that's going to make them be able to be successful.
Yeah.
And you operate against it. So that's the one thing that I would say is the key. I've found that I've taken way more underdogs this year than I have taken favorites, because underdogs are still getting those same point spreads on the road, and you're not ever really having to worry about those fan bases that can really drive.
That changes the momentum of a game.
In college sports, fan bases change a lot.
Oh, yeah. Cameron Indoor, Chapel Hill, all these places.
You've seen it. The Blue Bloods are struggling this year.
Kentucky.
They're struggling this year. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Blue Bloods are always the ones that get the 5-star recruits. They're always the ones with the youngest teams, because those players are going to either be one and done or two and done. So the problem is, when you don't get a lot of camp, you don't get a lot of repetitions, and you're doing these Zoom meetings that you have to do to be able to have these in-home workouts, like, that's not building camaraderie at all. And the teams that you're seeing excel right now are not surprisingly the teams that have the juniors and the seniors that have played together, the Iowas, the Wisconsins.
Oh, yeah.
Like, those are the teams right now that are killing it. The Seton Hall is really turning it.
Seton Hall's playing well, yep.
Like, there's teams that have the camaraderie that they built for years that didn't need that practice time once they needed to get back into the regular season. They just needed to start getting reps. They needed to start getting into their motions again, and they needed to start doing it. And those are the teams that I'm moving on right now, the teams that you know that are built for this. Later on in the season, those young teams, once they get the full season or the allotment of the conference play and everything like that, then you'll start seeing those teams excel. That's why Kentucky's always been great all these years. Kentucky stinks right now, no doubt, but know this. Kentucky is too talented from top to bottom on their roster for that team at some point in this conference schedule not to get a winning streak going.
Go on a little run here.
Same thing with North Carolina. I might crown on Roy Williams being the worst coach in Division I basketball all the time.
This is unbelievable.
But ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's not hard to coach 5-star recruits all the time. And eventually they're going.
This guy thinks anybody can do it.
And eventually, those guys are going to be able to win basketball games.
He forgot North Carolina wasn't winning before he got there.
It might be later on the season. Another team, St. Bonaventure. Like these teams that are built, that have already had playoff experience, that are already in the NCAA tournament, they're returning guards. Like we all know that college basketball is built on what? Great guard play.
Yep.
It's very, very different from the NBA, but great guards excel in the NCAA basketball. So
Kemba.
If you got
Shabazz Napier, right?
Yeah, you're gonna be and where's Shabazz Napier now?
Nowhere. But he went on a hell of an NCAA tournament run, I'll tell you that.
Exactly. Last year, Miles Powell was one of the best guards in college basketball.
Yep.
Miles Powell is not even sniffing a basketball court right now in New York. So, it's different. The game is different, but what I've learned is stick with what you know.
Yep.
Another great trend that I found this year, and it was the same thing as last year, Mark, was how the Big Ten teams handle their business on home courts. Their stats right now, 83-12 between the whole conference at home right now.
Okay.
So anytime I've seen a pick'em with a Big Ten team, we saw it the other day. It was Minnesota. I think it was on Sunday against Ohio State. Pick'em. Didn't even think, Mark.
Yeah.
I just took Minnesota.
Yeah.
I didn't need to delve into that game. I didn't even overthink.
You just know that stat and you jump on it.
Exactly, because that's exactly the things that you look for. The advantages like that. Another one that we'll talk about a trend that we learned about in this past season. It was anytime Mile High Stadium over 42.5 points.
Take the under.
It only didn't hit one time, and this was that past weekend.
Yep.
It covered every single time.
And there's a thing where you talk about numbers, and you heard that you guys have always heard the phrase "numbers never lie." It's 100% true. You play the numbers, you play the trends. You're gonna hit. There's gonna be times where you play it and it's not gonna hit for you. But if you continue it and you keep going after it, you're gonna win more times than you're gonna lose.
You got it with pro athletes, but I mean you got it with college kids too. And I'll keep saying it. A lot of these college kids are pros because most of them, whether or not they're gonna not play in the league, they're going to go overseas and they're going to play some sort of pro basketball somewhere else. So you can always consider them pros. And you're seeing it a lot more in Division I. A lot of these lower conferences, the MEAC, the SWAC, they're starting to actually generate top recruits to those conferences. And it just goes to show you how fast the players are actually rising in basketball right now. From where they were 10 to 15 years ago to where you're now. There's a lot of good players, and it has to do with a lot of the things that they can do now, like whether it's the weight room, the AAU tournaments, how early they're able to start getting into competitive basketball now. So a lot of these players, once they get to Division I basketball, are ready to go right now. So I love college basketball. I love college basketball.
You're my college guy, dude.
It's something that I appreciate every year just because it's team basketball.
What's the number one rule about college basketball, though?
They're just kids.
You can't get mad. They're just kids.
They're just kids.
You can't get upset.
As much as I'll curse at LeBron James right now for taking this jump shot right now, right?
The fuck, LeBron.
And he broke it. No shock in that. But I can't get mad at a kid for taking a 21-foot fall away. Like, you know what I'm saying?
You can't get mad at the walk-on. You can't get mad at the walk-on who gets in garbage time and just goes crazy and tries to get in the box score. And he hits the three. And now your under is ruined because that three just hit the over. You can't get mad at that kid. He's just trying to make a name for himself. He's trying to show his parents, like, I made the box score.
And it's funny, like, we have our old middle school coach watching this game. Shout out Mr. McGovern.
Yeah.
If he ever got me in the game with 3 minutes to go in the game, like I was getting at least three balls.
Oh, if we got in the game and if it was, even if we were up 25, like I'm trying to get in the box score.
Exactly.
Like, come on.
And now I might be the guy being like, slow down. You're down 20. But then I'm also thinking to myself, this guy's probably not going to see the court for the rest of the season now. So he's got to be able to get some shots up.
Listen, my favorite time before I became a starter in high school, when I was getting garbage time minutes, was hitting a shot and then checking the newspaper the next day and your boy was in that box score. 1 for 1, 2 points.
And it's different now. Everybody's got a social media platform now. Everybody's got a Twitter.
Yeah, it's not like it was back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody's got a little bit, somewhat of a fan base. So,
Oh yeah,
they're just kids. You're right. Like I say,
can't get mad.
I say it all the time. Maybe I'm starting to show my age at this point, but these kids now are at least a decade younger than me now. So,
Oh yeah, big time.
So
Yep.
they're kids.
Oh, they're children.
They're kids. Can't get mad at them. I can tell them to hustle a little better. I can tell them to slide their feet. I can tell them to be
You
smarter.
coach them up.
But these ideas that like social media is really you coach them up exactly. But what we've seen is social media is a dangerous thing. Like these kids have to deal with death threats. They have to deal with all these other things.
Oh yeah.
Like just let these kids go out and play basketball because there's nothing more pure than college basketball. There really isn't. And all I wish for is the fact that we even get some semblance of a March Madness tournament this year. I know that it's set right now for Indianapolis. We're supposed to get it in March. Everything's going to be in one big bubble. Limited fan capacity. It's only going to be to parents, this and that. But it's just so important that we get that back.
We need it.
We get that back. That was the first thing we truly lost this year.
Yep.
And that would be the first thing that will make me feel like everything's normal again. So shout out college basketball. I love it. I love it so much, Mark.
I completely agree with you, man. And all that information we just gave you guys, good place to use it. Good place to use that knowledge. MyBookie.ag. Make sure you guys go check them out. Create an account. Use code USN100. Get double your first deposit. You put in $100. You can get it matched with $100, and you can use everything that Steve and I just gave you to win some money on college basketball and the NBA. So use those trends. And also, guys, before we head on over to rxhemp.com and use their all-natural CBD cream. They got a heated cream and a cool therapy cream, and helps with all your aches and pains. And you can use rxhemp-USN and save 10% on your whole order. And then also go check out wiredbysports.com, guys. We got articles, we got podcasts up over there. We got a lot of great things going on. We got merch now. Go rep us and just support. We appreciate it. Any last words, Steve, before we sign off for episode 43?
Yes. So
I like it.
You guys can find us on Twitter. Any questions, DMs, tweet at us. Let us know if there's anything you're feeling on a daily slate at night. Maybe you have a feel, a lean. Like, be glad to hear it. If that's one thing that I appreciate the most about social media is that there's a forum for everything. There's enough information to go around, and if you look hard enough, I think the most important. Like, I'll put in this perspective. The other night, I found out that Juan Dixon, former Maryland player,
Maryland Terp,
coaches Alabama State now. And Alabama State was playing their second game of the year, and Juan Dixon just had an interview out talking about how tough his offense is to learn, and the fact that he had a lot of young guys coming in, and they haven't had enough practice time to be able to go through what they're needed to do. They were playing a Jackson State team that plays at a snail's pace, and what happened? The teams combined for 102 points in that game. So it's little things, little conversations that I would have never picked up if it wasn't for Twitter. I would never find a Juan Dixon interview at all to be able to help me with something like that. But there's people in very, very different places around this country here that's got the same thoughts that you got every day waking up. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to say. We love to be able to talk to you guys. Me and Mark now actually do play-by-play for the Boston Celtics.
Yep.
So
check us out on there.
Anytime you want to check us out on there, it's the same thing. As soon as we get into a commercial break, we're open to any questions, anything you need to ask us. And and like I said, we're not the smartest people in the world. We're not claiming it, but we're learning. Every week we're learning more.
We're better. We get better. You never win or you lose. You just win or you get better.
Keep building. You got to keep building it up. You got to keep getting better. And like I said, we help you. You help us. Like, we can do this together, Mark.
That's right. Make sports betting great again.
Everybody love everybody.
All right. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week on another episode of For the Love of the Game. Peace, guys.
Ciao.